The most hated Roblox development agency just vanished. If you have played Roblox in the last 2 years, you would know why Dubig Studios has such a bad reputation. It was a company that bought 2 of the largest games in history and turned them into the most pay-to-win games. They owned Fisch, they owned a portion of Steal a Brainrot, and they had a stake in Grow a Garden. However, in this video, I will be talking about the disappearance of Dubig Studios, as recent news and controversy has exposed that Dubig Studios could be gone. But before that, hey, I am Hundi and I would like to ask you watching this video right now to subscribe, as it would help me out a ton and I'm trying to reach 10,000 subscribers. And since you're already here, you might as well click the like button as well. But anyways, let's get back into the video. Now, to understand why their disappearance was so shocking, we first have to understand just how big Dubig Studios actually was. They weren't just a development team, they practically owned the entirety of Roblox. Their strategy was to make millions of dollars, which some would even say as simple. They first have to find a game that is already blowing up, offer the developer a massive bag of cash, and take control of their own game. Of course, this wasn't anything new in business, however it was predatory that many people hated what they were doing. All they care about was the profit that they could make, and as for every Roblox game community, they made sure that they were angry. The reason for this action was that they wanted to ensure that players would have enough publicity to keep those games alive. When they were still a small company, they acquired games that had potential but lacked the developers to grow their game. But soon, their ambition grew. They targeted a Dusty Trip, a game that was a beloved passion project before. However, Dubig Studios turned it into a disgusting piece of slop. They bought Blade Ball, which was originally loved by its community, and they also bought Baddies, that was a passion game made off by its developer. However, these games are now dead due to their influence. But what made them so rich was the game called Fisch. Now, Fisch was one of the games that introduced Roblox to a lot of people. Created by a solo developer named WoozyNate, it was a simple, relaxing fishing simulator that blew up just because it wasn't pay to win. It was a passion project that people found fun, which made it special, especially other games inside Roblox were fast-paced, like for example, Blox Fruits, which were taking over Roblox. It reached number 1 on the platform, pulling in hundreds of thousands of concurrent players. It was one of the prime examples to indie development. However, this all went wrong when Dubig Studios started to come in the picture. According to the reports of YouTuber Coael, Dubig Studios bought the game for an undisclosed sum, and it was rumored that the original creator was even able to buy a McLaren shortly after. This buyout was shocking to many players within the Fisch community. Players were terrified that their favorite chill game was about to be ruined, especially since the reputation of Dubig was already rampant at the time. And of course, they were absolutely right. Almost immediately, the game changed. The subtle player-friendly design was replaced by pay-to-win mechanics. They added expensive limited-time bundles that cost thousands of Robux, and they also added a 64x luck game pass, which made Fisch into a casino slop. They flooded the screen with pop-ups, begging you to spend their money, and the game went from a chill fishing simulator to a casino disguised as a game. The player count plummeted because fans were absolutely furious. Videos like the diabolical decline of Fisch by the Holy Grail 75 racked up millions of views, which videos like these made it a prime example to document the greed of this company. But Dubig didn't care. They already made their money back, and all they had to do was just move on to the next target. They acquired Steal a Brainrot, turning another game with millions of players into one of their victims. They also bought a significant stake, reportedly around 15 to 30%, in Grow a Garden. And these were not just regular games, as these are 2 of the biggest games in history. By 2025, Dubig Studios effectively owned half of the player base in the top charts of Roblox. If you looked at the top playing sections of the charts, half of those games were giving Dubig Studios millions of dollars per week. And some would even say that this has become a monopoly inside Roblox. The hatred of Do Big Studios wasn't just about the money. It was the destruction of Roblox and the introduction of slop culture. Roblox used to be a place where a couple college students or a random kid with a dream could make the next big hit that would reach over millions of players. It is a place for developers to have ideas and communities where it would actually be fun. But Do Big Studios turned it into a platform to exploit children's money and introduce gambling to many users. The YouTuber Ducky released a video titled "Roblox Needs to Ban Do Big Studios," arguing that Do Big Studios was killing creativity. When a studio has infinite money, they can outmarket and outdevelop any solo or three-person group development. They work faster without any need for creativity, as at the end of the day, they only strive for Robux of each Game Pass, consumable, or pet. The games that they owned were soulless, and not only that, they were just complete slop. The updates were repetitive and they were often just a reskin of an old one, and they introduced battle passes, loot boxes, and limited time exclusive items, and the fear of missing out on mechanics that preyed on children who played this game. The Roblox community saw through it though, as they recognized the pattern. Often, a game would get bought out by Do Big Studios, and the updates would get faster but in lower quality. The monetization would ramp up, and everything that all of their games had would just disappear. But the hatred of the Roblox community went so far deeper, as many have blamed developers for a game's downfall. It was personal, as players were insanely mad over the fact that the developers sold their game just for their own benefit. Games that they spent time grinding just to become a pay-to-win slop that soon died. The impact of Do Big's ownership was almost always negative for the players. We have already talked about Fisch, but the destruction went much further. A Dusty Trip suffered a similar fate. The point of the game was lost with all the game passes replaced by a grind that can only be skipped with Robux. Blade Ball saw the introduction of pay-to-win abilities that ruined the competitive balance. Skill no longer mattered in the game, but what mattered was actually how much money you could pay them. The pattern was always the same: buy the game, add pay-to-win game passes, and watch the player count drop, and then buy the next one, and it was just a cycle of destruction. They treated their players and the games as short-term playthings, until the hate that riled up against them was getting so bad that they had to move and buy the next one. In the end, Do Big Studios owned Roblox, and it was impossible for any Roblox developer to reach over 1 million players, or let alone 100,000. If you look at the top 10 Roblox games, they are either formed with a team more than 10 or just simply owned by Do Big Studios. Rarely any top game had the chance to begin with. But recently, cracks started to appear inside the company. The first sign that something was wrong that made players guess as to what even happened was Fisch was sold back to its original owner, Woozy Nate. According to Blocks Explained, the original creator Nate took back full control. Many Fisch players speculated that Do Big Studios had a fight with Woozy Nate, which at the time they had decided it was not even worth the hassle. Some people would have said that finally, Do Big Studios is getting off Roblox, and they actually could be right. However, Woozy Nate immediately started undoing the damage. He removed the pay-to-win bundles, he removed the 64x luck game passes, and he stripped away many pay-to-win mechanics that Do Big had added into the game. He promised a return to good content that players were asking for, which after a month, he did. The Roblox community celebrated as Do Big had left one of the key games that made Roblox how it is today. Fisch was free. The player count started to recover from their horrible 10,000 players to a whopping 100,000 players. With everyone still mad at Do Big and everyone happy that they left Fisch alone, they began to see the effects of the company. But this raised a massive question towards many players. Why did they even let the game go if it had this much potential? The funny thing is that even after all of the removal of all these pay-to-win mechanics, in the Holy Grail's video, he stated that the profits that they were gaining never even changed. Fisch was still making hundreds of thousands of dollars. Companies like Do Big Studios don't just give up assets out of the kindness of their hearts. They always want to gain as much money as they can, and this is what fueled the anger for so much players, as this is what they were labeled with, just a generic greedy company. Unless of course they were already on their way out, and unless they were already being forced to divest, and unless the walls were closing in. And that brings us to December 13 of 2025. The Do Big Studios website, which once proudly displayed their portfolio of hit games of Steal a Brainrot, Fisch, and Grow a Garden, was wiped clean. The games were gone. The About Us page was blank and everything else was disabled. There was no announcement, no press release, no farewell message, just silence. Now, as soon as players realized this, they sent it out to all of the Discord groups of games that they could have possibly owned. Many players celebrated, saying that they could possibly be gone, with some even guessing what even happened. Some believe that Do Big Studios has simply cashed out. They made their millions and they saw the player counts dropping across their portfolio, and especially as a Roblox as a whole. And they decided to just take out their money and leave as they got what they wanted. Of course, those angry players who were mad celebrated at their disappearance, some of which even say it was deserved and that their disappearance was better for Roblox entirely, which was right, as if they left Roblox alone, then many other games could rise, and we have been seeing that already happen. For example, The Forge, it rose without Do Big's help, and it was a game that rose from starting only with one developer named Fire Attack. Ever since they sold Fisch, they have been awfully quiet, no new games being bought, and that no games are experiencing a drastic amount of change, becoming a pay-to-win casino. Do Big Studios has become toxic. The name was compared with greed and failure. However, it is possible that they are simply dissolving the Do Big brand to reform under a new name. Of course, still continuing their monopoly from the shadows without a bad reputation. They could be creating shell companies, hiring new scapegoats, and buying new games under a different name to avoid the scrutiny of the community. However, as of right now, we still don't have a clear answer. Whatever the reason, the impact is still massive. The top games on Roblox have been a little better than they were a few months ago. Fisch is back on the hands of its creator, and of course, the future of developers look better. But what about Steal Brainrot, and what about their stake in Grow a Garden? Who owns these games now? And are the original developers just back in charge, or have they been sold to another faceless corporation? However, since we have had no news about them, nobody truly knows. If Do Big is truly gone, it could mean that many games on the front page would drastically change. It could mean that there would be a return to developer-led passion projects. It could mean that now is the end of slop, or at least the downfall of such. It also leaves, though, an empty space. The model that Do Big created of buying games and monetizing them is too profitable to disappear. Other studios, perhaps even more ruthless, will likely step in to fill the gap, and there will always be someone willing to do that. The story of Do Big Studios is one that will haunt Roblox for years, and it will most likely be mentioned to a lot of people. It showed us what happens with the platform when it is treated purely as a business rather than a place for fun. It showed us the lens that some people would take in order to get everything for themselves. They bought the biggest games, they squeezed them for every penny, and they allegedly did it all while being run by a van scammer. They represented the worst aspects of any Roblox development company. Their disappearance is a victory for now, but of course their silence is only a short piece. Their return could happen as there is no announcement just yet, but the practices that they normalized, the pay-to-win mechanics, the copy-paste update, the predatory monetization are still here. They have scarred Roblox forever. However, this has been the story of Do Big Studios and the question of whether or not the most hated development company is gone. This is Hundi, and until the next video, goodbye.